Some of you wanted an update on the Sugar Rush peppers. These are the red, and they are sprouting very nicely. These are the peach. They are actually sprouting first. These two were sprouting more on the Sugar Rush peach. We're sprouting like the first few days, and then followed by the red. Now I think they're pretty much caught up. Here I have the Habanada, and they were sprouting, but more slowly. And so I can tell you one hack you can do. If you only have one heating pad, you can put the ones that are not sprouting as fast on the bottom, and the ones that are sprouting faster on the top. And once they're all sprouted, you can turn off the heat mat or use the heat mat for another setup. So that's my hack, because you don't need the heat once they've sprouted. And so I double stack them, and I put the ones that have not sprouted yet on the bottom. So they've all sprouted now. So I turned the heat mat off, and I'm going to have to remove the tops because you can see they're touching the top of the lid. So let's do that next. So I'm outside now just so I don't make a mess inside the home, but I'm going to cut off the back sides here, and then I'm just going to put this part under the bottom, which will give it more support and stability. So when I'm moving them around, they're not so topsy-turvy. And also so I keep the labels. So you can see here, this is the Sugar Rush red pepper. It's actually touching the top of the lid. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And if you remember, it looks like there wasn't germination over here, but I only have like 18 seeds for the red. And so let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And I'm not sure if that's one or if that's one, probably not. But I got almost 100% germination, like 95% or so. And these are all looking really, really good. Some of them are taller and sprouted faster than the other ones, but the other ones will catch up. One thing I like to do is to brush my hand across them. It actually helps them to strengthen up their stems. And once you take the lid off, because I had the lid on to keep the moisture in so that it would germinate well, but now that I've opened this up, I'm going to remove the lid. I'm not going to put this back on a heat mat, but I do want to put it under grow lights. And I don't want to put it too far away from the grow lights, otherwise it'll get really leggy. If that happens with tomatoes, I plant them deeper and it ends up being okay. But in my experience, that has not been the case with my peppers. So if you have other experiences with peppers, planting them deeply, you can comment below, but that's not been my experience. I've tried and failed. So I will not be planting peppers deeply. In my experience, it has made the plants die. I won't say it killed them, but they died, the ones I tried that with. But planting deeply does work with tomatoes, but when they're a bit more mature, like I don't like to do it right away, you are more susceptible to get a little bit of rot. So I do plant tomatoes deeply, but I don't think I'm going to do that this year, or if I do, I won't do it as much. Especially being in Washington State, our growing time is shorter, so I think I'm going to let my plants grow at ground level this year. But these are my Sugar Rush red peppers. Get them nice and strong, and I'm going to cut off the lid. So I cut the lid off here, and I'm just going to stack the tray inside the lid, and you see how it's wobbly and it kind of cracks when I lift it. But once I do this, now I can lift it and it doesn't crack. That's a good hack. And I'm a poet, now I know it. Okay, so it really does help. Once you take the lid off and you put it underneath, when you try to move it, now that they're growing, that's when you're going to have them moved around more. And so having that support, the extra stability is really nice. This is one of the reasons why I also like to use these clamshells, is because the really large ones that you buy at the store actually are pretty flimsy too. And if you have to move them around, you need to use 2 hands. And I like to multitask. So this side again was not planted. These are the Sugar Rush red. And I got 95, maybe higher than that, because I don't think that's one. I think that's just a volunteer of something, and that doesn't look like really anything, but I can see one is sprouting right here. So almost 100% germination. Let's check the Sugar Rush peach. One of the little hacks I like to do too is once I watered them and I planted them and I snapped it closed, when the condensation builds up on the top, I flick it, and it doesn't show really well now because I've already opened this a few times in the last like half an hour, but it will actually fall down and water it so you don't have to actually open it up. Okay, but I can tell that they've outgrown the container. You can see that they're actually pressing on the plastic, and I don't want the leaves to rot. So it's imperative that I open this up and cut this part off. These are the Sugar Rush peach. I planted them 10 days ago. And if you want to ask me what kind of soil I use, I just used soil from my front yard. And actually, there are a bunch of mole holes, and I just grabbed some of the soil that was sticking up from a mole hole, and I used it for here. And you can see how well it's grown. So let's count them, and I think I wrote on the side here how many I did. 28. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Actually, when I look closer, I actually have 27. So 27 out of 28. And there are a few things in here that are not peppers. I'm not counting those. That's not a pepper. Okay. So I'll kind of span up here so you can see. If you want to pause it and double check my math. But there are 27. And again, I like to brush over these. I want them to strengthen up their stems, and I'll do this a couple times a day. And also, I will position a fan, not very hard, just not very high, but just like on low. I'll position a fan so it blows on it for a couple hours a day so that they also naturally get that wind effect. All right. I'm going to cut off the lid. And I went ahead and I doubled up the lids on the bottom now, so I still have my label. And also it's easier to pick up. This one is bigger, so it will still crack. My trick for that is that when they get inside, I will just water it heavier in the cracks to make it naturally go back together. And that's really not a big deal at all. I just would not leave the cracks because if they have roots forming in those spaces, then they will be exposed to air. And so I like to nurture my plant babies, keep them alive. And you can see that they all do sprout at different rates. This one's just opened, whereas some of the other ones opened within only a few days. This has been 10 days of growth, including germination. So here is the Habanada pepper. I planted on the same date, March 16th. Today is March 26th, so it's been 10 days. I don't recall how many peppers I planted, but I know it wasn't as much as the sweet peach. It was probably around the same amount as the red. And I will try to post a comment here so that you'll remember the germination rate. I don't have as many of these sprouting. I think I have 5. And then I also have some mold growing. So I'm going to prick those out. I don't want to leave the mold. And I would leave this longer. But since I already have 4, at least 4 or 5, some of them are taller. And I don't want them to lean down. I want them to go straight up. So I'm going to cut this top off, even though ideally I would like to leave it longer because I do feel like some of the other seeds will sprout. A lot of times with peppers, some will sprout within a couple of days or a week, and some will be late. So I do expect that some of these are going to still sprout, but I have at least 4. And I'm going to take off the mold, and I'm going to cut off this top and put it on the bottom for stability. So I've cut off the top, and I'm going to use this really high-tech tool. It's called a pine needle. And I'm going to take off the bits that are moldy. Oh my, that's not mold. That is a seed that sprouted upside down. That's really rare. You see this in the jungle very often, boys and girls. This is actually not mold. Wow. That is a seed that's sprouting upside down. That's bizarre because these seeds had heat on the bottom and light on the top. The seeds usually know which way is up and which way is down. Not the best genetics, but I'm going to be nice and I'm going to replant it with the roots going down. So I'm going to tell you guys, it's not the best genetics because this seed doesn't know what it was doing. But I'm going to be merciful and we'll see if it makes it. Especially since I don't have that many sprouting, I'm going to do this one a favor. But that wasn't mold. Wow. It was, I don't know the scientific word, but it wasn't doing its job. It should know the sun is up and the ground is down. I had heat on the bottom and I had light on the top. So this one is confused. Okay. So I think that's actually what happened here too. I think that actually is a sprout, not mold. I'm going to take a look. Yep, this is another one. I thought this was mold. It looked just like it. You can see my high-tech pine needle. And I'm going to reposition it. So I did have a higher germination rate, but these seeds, so my camera so rudely shut me off. I think it was telling me I was talking too much. Anyway, so that was another one. That one that I thought was mold, it was roots were going up and the plantlet was going down. The seedling was going downward. That is not how it's supposed to be. So that's interesting. This here too, that looks, let me see if I can show you. Those are roots right there. I'm just going to take a little sprinkle of soil and cover the roots. Okay, so the Habanada, we'll see how much, if it catches up, but by far the Sugar Rush Peach and the Sugar Rush Red, this is the Sugar Rush Peach, it's doing a lot better than the Habanada. This is the Sugar Rush Red. It's also doing very well. Really high germination rates on both of the Sugar Rush Peach and Red, and then low germination so far on the Habanada. But like I said, folks, sometimes they catch up later. And I've had that happen a lot. I'll even plant them out, and then, you know, a month into it, they start to sprout. So when the conditions are just right to the seed, that's when it will sprout. So don't think that the germination is done. And a lot of times I think Baker Creek will be really generous with seeds. They'll say like low germination rate, so we gave you extra seeds. And whenever I've gotten those, I've gotten like almost 100% germination, so they're very generous. But then when I find out is they probably look at it for a couple of days or when it was supposed to sprout by, and if you give it more time, a lot of times they will pop up later. So do not get your hopes like dashed or whatever. So I'm gonna go ahead. Sorry about that, folks. My camera guy is like, you know, low budget. So I'm going to go ahead and put these back inside. I'm not going to put them on a heat mat, but I am going to put them under lights. Remember, I don't want the lights too close, and you do have to be careful not to burn them. So I've had that happen too. So I don't put the lights on for like 12 hours. I leave the lights on in the bathroom and in the master bath, and I just leave them. And then for a couple hours a day, I put on the actual grow lights. And that has been a charm for me. And then later, when they're more established, I can give them more light. I just don't like to fry them. And I also need to make sure that I am keeping these moist and warm, or like damp. And now that they're not covered with a plastic, that water will evaporate. Before, when I had it covered, the condensation was actually keeping them from drying out. Now I have to do my due diligence. All right, everyone, update me. How are your Sugar Rush Red and Sugar Rush Peach peppers doing? And did you have a better luck with your Habanadas? All right, everybody, I'll see you in the next video. Take care and God bless. So I have a little space under the grow light, and I have this pepper that I planted last year. We're going to do an experiment and see how well it does, but this is actually a ghost pepper. My husband actually collected the seeds from a ghost pepper he bought, and I planted them, and they all did really well, but I ran out of space and time. So this one is going to give it another chance. It's been in this container for a year, basically. So this is a ghost pepper. Let's give it a chance and I'll do an update to see how well it does. And here we have our red, and here we have our peach, Sugar Rush peach, and Sugar Rush red. And I will swap out one of these trays and put the habanada, because like I said, I don't put my little tiny seedlings under the light for very long, and then my space is really limited inside the home. Outside I have plenty of room, but I have a very small house, so I make do with the space I have, which is what we all do, right? Some of us have more, some of us have less, but we make it work. This tray looks like a tray of brownies. Like mint chocolate chip brownies, but they are actually Sugar Rush peach, and I'll give them a chance. I don't have a fan set up in here yet, but I will in the next couple of days. All right, everyone, now I really am saying goodbye. Have a great day.